Hello everyone and welcome to the Pancake Parlay episode 62. I'm your host, The Don, and I'm here with Chatters. How are you today?
I'm good, man. How are you, Don?
I'm doing pretty good. We got a full chock-a-block episode today. We're obviously going to be talking about some, Doom Patrol midway through the season, so we want to know kind of our thoughts on that. We're going to be talking about some cancellations, but first, since we're in the heat of the moment, we're going to talk about Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 2, and which is called A Night of Seven Kingdoms. So I feel like this episode, just right off the bat, we got a lot more information, and I feel like more of a structure of where this season's going to go, and kind of where everyone is kind of placing. Like, I feel like the first episode was setting up stuff, but I feel like this is the episode where we've got a lot more information. And how'd you feel about this episode?
Yeah, I kind of felt this episode like I enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of things kind of turning, and it's clearly it's like the episode, like episode one is essentially kind of to get everybody back up to speed with what's going on in Game of Thrones. It's been a while since people have seen it. This episode is okay. We're kind of moving things along, getting the cogs turning to next episode, which will be the big initial altercation with the White Walkers. But yeah, there's a lot of again, there's a lot of people meeting again. Again, like Jamie is meeting everyone kind of for the first time. That's kind of the first scene that we are introduced with, where everybody's kind of questioning him, and Cersei basically fucked everyone over, like all of the Seven Kingdoms, by not sending her army to help with the White Walker threat. So he doesn't look pretty. He doesn't look that great. And you also get like another really funny quip from Bran, where he references a quote. He says,
What we do for love?
What we do for love, like, which is a quote he says, like, I think as he like kind of kicks him from the tower back in episode 1 of Game of Thrones. This is kind of funny thing. I kind of like Bran this season, and it's probably due to the writing. They kind of almost have made him a little bit of like a comedic character, because he's kind of very much like, yeah, I know what everyone's doing at every single time, So he's
Like,
just
they even have a moment in this episode where you've got Jamie and Bran talking, and he's like, and then Jamie's like, yeah, I'm sorry, I threw you out the window, and he's like, I'm not Bran anymore, I'm like something else. And I feel like that's his kind of character now. He's not Bran per se, he's more than that.
Yeah, he's the isn't he the Third Eye Raven? Is that
Yeah,
how
the
that
Third
works?
Eye Raven, and like even with this episode, they talk about the Third Eye Raven, and there's a lot of interesting stuff with that I don't think we really got in the TV show much of a detail, but in the books, we've gotten a lot more, because they have a plan for the next episode and the way to kill the Night King, and obviously their Bran's like, yeah, he's been hunting me this whole time. And he's got the mark, so I know he knows exactly where I am. So he's going to be bait for the Night King, and then basically they're going to try to kill him, because they're doing the whole thing of you kill the leader, you kill everyone else. Which that's why like it makes a lot more sense, because in the first episode of this season, we had that scene of that random person on the wall. They kill it, and then it turns into fire. So it's gonna like, I think that's kind of symbolism type of thing. It's like, if you kill the Night King, all the White Walkers turn into like fire and burn out. So I feel like that's kind of the plan. And like,
Yeah,
that's the thing. We're gonna be 3 episodes in. I don't think it's gonna work, but that's just me.
well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. The big issue with that particular plan, at least, I don't know how it's actually going to plan out. It's obviously going to be the Night King's going to either outthink them or something like that. But the main thing is, like, if the Night King has this like massive army, and he's gonna basically roll over this area regardless, why would he not just take his time and just eventually get to Bran, as opposed to kind of risking himself and getting a bit too ahead of himself, then only coming by himself, which he obviously won't. He'll probably come. Oh, yeah, this is the thing that I also kind of don't get. Do they not know that they have a undead dragon? Maybe that happened after
No,
they
yeah,
left.
they don't. No one
Yeah,
knows. So it's gonna be one of those big
yeah, yeah.
reveals. I think that's the thing. That'll be like, oh crap, we didn't take in consideration that like they have one
There's
of our
all this stuff
dragons.
happening. Yeah, there's that too. The other thing is there also could be someone some of the forums that I was reading, they're also saying that maybe uh the Night King isn't going to be even there, and he's gone off to King's Landing instead, right? That could be another potential thing that, okay, yeah, maybe like they fight and they kill off and they hold back the army of the undead, but it's not actually the full army. They kind of do like what happened, I think, like last season, where they like split the armies off in half, right?
Yeah.
And he could go off to King's Landing and try to because obviously there's going to be scenes set in King's Landing where shit goes south. Because we from the previews there are stuff in regards to that, but we just don't know what is happening as of yet. But I think the main thing that's got to happen is like maybe in the next two episodes, like it's got to be like they're fighting the White Walkers, and then eventually they have to start making their way through to King's Landing, because obviously there's going to be a big ship battle, because again we've seen previews of that, so there's going to be that particular thing that's happening. But I'm interested to see like what exactly they're going to do with it, because I think like if it's something as simple as they tricked the Night King to come into the center of this castle, seems like it's a bit rushed.
Yeah, I feel like that there's not much planned, but we've even seen the previews of Snow, for example, the direwolf finally. So there's gonna be a fight scene with that, which is actually pretty cool because I think a lot of hardcore fans are like, "Where's all the direwolves? They're alive.
Yeah,
they just don't show them in the show." So
yeah, probably because it's probably probably costs money to like just have like a direwolf or like a CG. Are they CG or are they real? I don't remember.
They're real, but I think they add a few CGI things. But even then, it's like it must cut up the budget quite a bit. Like they got dragons and all this stuff, so it's like I always find it really weird. This is like the biggest TV show that we currently have, and they're still like, nah, man, we can't do like movie budgets, like
dogs.
Oh
yeah. Well, I mean, I guess this is a thing, right? Game of Thrones has been like this season will be eating up a lot of budget. Like the thing is, like I kind of liked watching the background as people were talking and just seeing what people were doing in the background. This season kind of seems like very alive, like everybody's kind of doing something to try and help. Like you see like people like cutting into all the kind of reinforcements, like all the stakes and spikes and stuff, like in the background as like Tyrion and them are talking. It's also very great to see Jaime and Tyrion kind of like hang out. That was really nice. I kind of have
yeah, not even that, but they have a callback from the first season. I think Tyrion's like, I want to die, with a bed and with women on my side.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I feel like this season has a lot of callbacks.
Yeah, I think they kind of have to. I think this is a big thing about this season is like, yeah, they're wrapping it up, so they have to make the most references to the series now, right? In order to try and like, wrap things up.
Because we even see like later in this episode that we've got what's his face? We got Podrick finally doing something. He's singing in the episode, but you don't really see much Podrick anymore.
No, you don't. And I think that just comes down to like what storylines are important. And I think a lot of this episode has to do with, okay, cool. It's Jaime trying to like get on everybody's good side because he just wants to help. Obviously he's known as Kingslayer, so Daenerys and the ilk are kind of like, oh, I don't want this guy anywhere near me kind of thing. But obviously him and Brienne, kind of, they're bros again and they're hanging out. But it's kind of weird. There was like this weird, like, I didn't really get it, like, because he says to Brienne like, oh, I'd be happy to fight by you if you'll have me, and she just like says like, see ya, and just leaves. It's really awkward. But then there's like another scene. Oh, okay, I don't know how you feel about this scene where everybody's like around the fire talking.
I don't mind it. I think this episode is kind of because what it reminds me of is something along the lines of like when you see people in media when they talk about like, yeah, we're going to World War II and stuff like that, or like we're shipping out to war tomorrow, so this is like their last night of trying to be like human and talk about their desires and what they want to do before they go into battle that they may not see, like they might not live another day. So that's why I feel like this whole episode was kind of that, of being like, these are the things what I want in life, and let's just do what we want to do. You know, like for example, one of the scenes is like with Arya Stark and Gendry, and they, you know, they have a sex scene. I think and that's the first time she's had like sexual relations with anyone. And it's kind of like one of those things where it's like, you know, we may die tomorrow, so let's live today type of thing. And also it just gives a little bit more character, I suppose.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like, again, we've kind of like grown up with a lot of these characters, and yeah, I'm not too sure what the canon age of Arya is in the Game of Thrones show at this stage. I think it's supposed to
be 9. Yeah, 9 or something like that.
9?
9?
9 years old?
Yeah, 9 years old when the series starts.
However,
okay. like obviously now, depending on years, yeah.
Okay. I'm like, wait, okay. Well, I know definitely George R. R. Martin had a lot of the characters young in the book, but they've aged them up in the shows. Like, you know, if they started off as 9 in the book, they're like 12 in the show, and then they grow up from that age. Mm-hmm. But actually, it was really funny. Apparently, the search traffic for Maisie Williams went up, like, for her age. Like, how old is Maisie Williams?
It's the FBI like, meme.
Yeah, more or less, right? And she's 22 for anyone wondering. So I just kind of found that like really funny. That was something that like obviously spiked as you know, she finally got her first sex scene in Game of Thrones,
which is like Game of Thrones tradition. So
yeah, I guess. But the thing is, like, the in the whole, that like, it was nice to see more like interact, but it seemed really like random. It was like this big empty hole. And I don't know how it was in medieval. They just like remove the tables and all the chairs, and then they start pulling chairs out of nowhere, and it's like, again, it's like, it seemed like really like random. But I did like the interaction, because again, you did have Jamie kind of knighting Brienne. And making her like an official knight. And it is very, very Brienne to be like, you know, I don't really care if I'm a knight or not, but I guess if you're going to knight me, I'll take it.
Yeah, that's why, like, I feel like a lot of, even just with this episode, it very much feels like a setup of, like, you want to care about these characters because I'm assuming...
Because they're going to die?
Because the next episode, a few of them are going to die, I feel like.
Yeah. That's what I'm feeling as well. Like,
so, like, that's why I'm saying Jorah is going to die because he has the blade. He's going to do something really freaking cool, and he's going to sacrifice himself, or that's going to be later in play. Or, like, even someone like Theon, you know, saying, pledging allegiance and things like that, he might die when certain, like, stuff comes to you know, when things like happen
when
like
things come to pass, yeah. No, definitely, I mean, you look at Grey Worm, like, I don't know, he's kind of like a minor character that exists sometimes, and he's like, I'm going to take you to this far-off land which you wanted to go see. And it's like, he's totally dying. Like, he's totally dying next week, you know? Like, there's all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I kind of do feel like it is definitely like a last hurrah to these characters. And, you know, obviously there's going to be a lot of, like, crazy shit happening. So it's understandable that, you know, all this, all these shenanigans are happening the way they are. It's just, yeah, it's cool. And that's kind of like, also, wait, actually, a bit earlier, you see Daenerys having a bit of a sit down, with Sansa. What did you think of that particular interaction? So essentially, Daenerys is trying to like, you know, connect with Sansa, since, you know, there's a bit of like a, you know, they're all looking at each other with like daggers. What did you think about that particular interaction?
Well, it's definitely setting up certain implications of future stuff. Obviously, like, because there's things come to play, and we're finally where Jon, like, obviously finally tells Daenerys of like his lineage, and technically he's the true king. We don't know. The only thing that we get is like Daenerys thinks that this is a setup because everyone seems to hate her from the north. But
well, that's later. But like her interaction with Sansa in particular.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like that kind of adds on to it because the direction with Sansa is like there's still no trust, and there was no resolution to that. So that's why I'm
Well,
thinking.
here's the thing though. Like, she starts off being really like nice and like, oh yeah, like, we've all, we're both like, women in power and stuff like that. But then like you immediately see like when Sansa mentions, well, the Norse said, we're not going to bow to any kingdom anymore. You can see like she like kind of repeals, right? Like she kind of like retreats, like her hand, like visibly she can see she's kind of like not upset but like angry,
So it's
right?
like
That
clear, like a manipulation almost,
yeah, like almost like yeah, like Daenerys has put this on, right? And I don't know if that like it's kind of like a little bit in tune with what we've seen with Daenerys because she's very focused on, oh, I'm going to be the heir to the throne. I'm going to rule over Westeros. It's my birthright, blah blah blah. But like you were saying before, later on, she talks to John, who like this thing was just the funniest thing. He's just like standing in front of his mother's like kind of statue and reveals, oh, by the way, this is my mom. I'm also Targaryen and I'm actually the true heir to the throne. And he doesn't present it in a way that like, oh, I'm telling you this because I want to be transparent. He's just like, I'm telling you this because maybe I might want to be the heir to the throne almost, right? And you can see, and what's kind of important is like how she responds to that, because she's like, no, it can't be. First, she's like, no, it can't be true, right? And then it's, oh, well, if that's true, that means you're the living like male heir to the Targaryen throne, right? Because she kind of sees that the way she says that kind of reveals that she's very much aware that he's kind of a threat to her, being, the queen of Westeros. And now sees him as a threat. And as they kind of leave, because, this happens kind of towards the end of the episode, there isn't like this kind of, they don't reconcile. Or
there's no resolution to the point. It just ends, kind of thing.
And it kind of happens twice, because it happens again with the conversation with Sansa too. But it's very much the case that people are those two people kind of don't. Well, Sansa doesn't trust her, but now that Jon just suddenly threw this on her, she's probably questioning like, a lot of things about, what should I do with this information now? Do I let him be, the true heir? Do I give up everything I've done to let him be heir? Like, this is the kind of questions that I think a lot of people, there are kind of theories about, oh, maybe she might be like the Mad Queen, like much like her father, right? And that can lead to some awkward shenanigans. Do the dragons listen to her? Because now, you see in the previous episode, the dragons, we're kind of looking at Jon as well. Like, do they listen to her, or do they listen to Jon? Because he also has Targaryen blood in him. Who knows? It's all these kind of things that are kind of up in the air in regards to what is the future for like Jon and Daenerys, like, and whether one of them will lay claim. Because I don't think Jon has explicitly said that he wants to lay claim to the Iron Throne.
Yeah,
but
if anything, he denies it. He doesn't like it.
Well, yeah, but it's very much the case in a lot of kind of like in philosophy that like those who don't want power should be the people in power, if that makes sense, because they're going to be least likely to be corrupted. But yeah, that's kind of like their kind of thing that's happening with those guys.
I just find it very interesting that like, because even possible like theory is that with all this type of stuff is that maybe in the future, because it is still called the Game of Thrones and it's all about the throne and the kingdom. Even if the White Walkers are there, it's still kind of about playing the field of trying to get to the throne and controlling it. So the way I see it is, some people's theories is that like almost because the throne imagery of the swords is like kind of like a thing of conquest. So people are speculating that like in the future it could be something along the lines of it becomes like a democracy almost, and they get rid of the throne, and they just dismantle the actual throne of swords and things like that, and kind of, there's open ruling possibly, but
Okay,
that's a theory, but
I mean, it kind like I get it, but it's like there's nothing interesting about that. People wanting to be democratic. That's not fun. All right, where's the game? Where's the game in that regard? Everybody gets to vote now. Now the backstabbing is done, politically, or more politically, I guess.
because the showrunners, they've said in many interviews before that the two kind of shows that they really inspired to be like, and kind of end in that particular way is Sopranos and Breaking Bad. And I've watched both shows. Sopranos is one of those very well known ending of a shows where it kind of ends abruptly. And it's one of those things where it's like it's very open to interpretation, kind of the same with Breaking Bad almost, where there's a lot of interpretation of where these characters are in the future. There's no like wrapping up it being like this is the person's over here and this person's over there. It's very like when the situation ends, you have no idea, and it's kind of up to your own interpretation. So I feel like whatever happens, it's still gonna be very open to interpretation. So I feel like
You see, yeah, I get that, but like, it becoming a democracy doesn't make it interesting, right? Like, I think Game of Thrones would be interesting if it's like, oh, everything kind of like wraps up pretty, like, heaps of people die, everything kind of like, maybe Jon becomes the king or whatever, but then like it kind of ends with like maybe somebody, coming to see him, and it's like, oh, there's like people like with knives or something, and it's like, oh, it's like maybe at the end and it's like an assassination attempt, but like it ends like that where you don't know whether the assassination attempt is successful, or whether Jon lives or whether the assassins win, but it just kind of shows, okay, in the end everybody still fights for the throne. That would be far more like Game of Thrones, like even after everything that they've gone through, and even after like banding together, combining the Seven Kingdoms, so to speak, to fight against like an undead threat. Like nothing changes. They still squabble over a throne made of swords, right? I think that's more in line with what Game of Thrones is like, as opposed to, I don't know. Like again, it's like fading, cutting to black in a situation like just before an assassination would be far more interesting.
Yeah, possible. But
who knows?
Yeah, there's one theory I need to touch on, is that through the opening credits, because the opening credits actually show a lot, and that's why I with Game of Thrones I never skip the opening credits, because it tells you where you're going and kind of little small hints. And I don't know if this is like an Easter egg almost, or if this could be something that they do in the show. But for the first time, they kind of show the Isle of Faces on the map. And the Isle of Faces is very important in Game of Thrones lore. That's where the Children of the Forest, that's where they kind of hang out. And that's in the sense of that's where, because basically the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers to kill it's like basically their weapon to kill the first man.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's kind of almost like if you ever watch like Alien or Prometheus, like the Prometheans created the aliens to kill whatever life form. It's basically a weapon of destruction.
I think they do kind of go a little bit through this in one of the seasons, right? When,
they do.
When the Bran's just given a lot of the exposition at the tree, right?
Yeah. So that's why I'm thinking they're going to go back to that, because I feel like that could be very important, because they explain the White Walkers have been defeated before, but no one knows how. No one still knows how that happened. So there's going to be some sort of like, I feel like there is going to be some sort of magical thing almost to do it.
Well, here's the thing. Actually, this is kind of related to something I was going to mention. There's often like a person who is referenced like quite a lot, especially in like the Lord of Light kind of mythos.
Yeah, Melisandre and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, she often references the prince that was promised, right? And essentially, it's somebody who is like a warrior of light who is important to fight back against the Eternal Night. Just a little bit of a of warning. Like, I haven't read Game of Thrones, so maybe I don't get like all the terminology and stuff correct. But this is just basically some of the stuff that I kind of briefly read about. But essentially, like, yeah, he was like a pretty important person to kind of defeat like the Night Walkers like last time they came around. And so Melisandre thought, oh, Stannis is the prince that was promised, right? And I think it's often there's also a name by Azor Ahai. This is also who was also like, you know, somebody who's important in like the Lord of Light religion, who had like a flaming sword. And the thing is, he in order to like create this sword, he had to sacrifice his wife. Oh, his wife died in the process, and her soul basically ignited the sword that's on fire. Kind of similar to that guy who's got the cool ass like sword. I forget his
The
name.
flame sword, yeah.
The cool flame sword. Much like that sword. Probably not the same sword.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of kind of what do you call it? A lot of there in the Game of Thrones stuff. There's a lot of symbolism.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was also an episode where they also mention, I think Varys was mentioning that like the word for prince is technically gender neutral, so it could technically also mean like prince or princess. So that kind of gives open to the interpretation of maybe it could be Daenerys as well, right? Although I think like, you know, the person who's most likely to be the prince that was promised is probably Jon. But I guess like, you know, we've kind of already been fed like the notion of, okay, he's like a combination of like Ice and Fire, Targaryen and Stark, all kind of makes sense. But yeah, and so this you know, there's all this stuff that I've been hearing. You know, people were saying, oh, maybe Jorah is actually the prince that was promised, because and this is quite okay. So hear me out. It probably isn't true, but I like the meme regardless, right?
Because Jorah should have died ages ago.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Didn't he die in the book? Oh no, he's original. He's an original character.
Yeah, he's original. Yeah. No, okay. I don't remember. It's been so long.
There was something like that, like whether he was like an original character or something. But anyways, there was this thing where people were talking about, okay, so we had I think Tormund. He there's this really awkward scene where, like, you know, they're around the fire and he talks about how you know, he's also known as Giant Bane, right? And the reason why he's known as Giant Bane is because he killed a giant while he was 10, and then went on to like suck on a giant's teat, like because the giant mother thought he was her baby. Really awkward, really weird scene. But the thing that's kind of important here is that they kind of establish the reason why he's called Giant's Bane, because later on, Samwell Tarly gives I guess what is it, Jormund, the sword, and his family sword called Heartbane, right? Now what people are saying is, oh, maybe he might go and stab Daenerys in the heart in order to activate it and become the prince that was promised. It's the funniest theory that I've.
It's like the ultimate betrayal, pretty much.
Yeah. It's, and very much like a you know, like instead of being a Kingslayer, he'd be the Queenslayer, right? And it's tragic in the sense that he is technically in love with Daenerys, and Daenerys knows it as well, very much so. Just keeps him around just to watch
him suffer, basically.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure it happened in the last season. It's like, yeah, then she goes off to fuck this other dude, and then comes back and is up. It's like, yeah, that's pretty funny. I had a good laugh. But yeah, there's like that. The other theory, I don't know if you've heard of this, is that Arya is actually waif. So if for viewers who don't remember, back when Arya was training in, I guess, the House of Black and White of the Many-Faced God, there was this female character known as Waif, who was like a servant. And when she was like leaving, or trying to escape the place, they have like a fight. And a lot of people reckon, oh, because she didn't actually win, and Waif basically assumes like takes her face, and the person that we've been interacting with this entire time isn't actually Arya, it's actually Waif. Because if she asks Podrick to make a weapon, which is like this kind of I don't know, like
It's like
a
a weird
spear.
spear, like detachable thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they haven't shown the detach because you look at the parchment and it looks like, oh, it's supposed to detach, but the thing itself doesn't detach, or at least they didn't show it detaching in the scene. But Waif actually does use this kind of like a, I forget what they're really called, Donatello. There's like, I don't know what Donatello from the
Nunchucks.
Ninja Turtles. No, Donatello.
Oh, Donatello, the
The
batons.
pepper one. Yeah, the pepper one. That's
Wait, purple. Wait.
Yeah, pepper.
Yeah, isn't that
Pretty
the
sure.
nunchucks?
No,
That's rough.
the pepper.
That's rough. No.
The pepper guy has like the long stick.
Yeah, it's just a long stick. Okay.
Yeah, oh, well, there's a proper name for it, but I don't remember. Anyway, she also has a weapon like that, but also Arya does learn how to fight with one when she's blinded.
Well, that's the thing. When
like a
she
thing
has
as well.
the previews that you see, Arya has a bow and arrow, and that might be interesting because like I don't remember if she was really efficient with the bow and arrow, but if she was, then it probably gives ground to the theory.
Well, I don't remember Arya being as efficient as a killer. But like obviously we see her like the one thing that doesn't really make sense about this theory is why she would go and kill like the Freys, right? Like how like she goes and she like basically kills all the Freys. That's a bit weird. Like why would she do that? Maybe there's like some kind of weird thing that when you assume the role of someone, it makes you like behave like them a lot more. Like we see Arya pretend to be like a little girl like back when she's like on the Iron Isle, like back when she was in the House of Black and White. So who knows? But maybe they might not do that with the last 6 episodes. Like it's kind of like a big thing to be like, oh, by the way, I'm
she
a character.
died all along.
It was dead or along. It might be something maybe they would do with like the books, because you'd have like a lot more of a bigger build up and it's a lot more tragic, I guess. Whereas like, with the books, I guess they're trying to wrap everything up in a nice cuddly bow. But we'll have to see. It's just like an interesting theory that like again that I keep seeing like memed on the Game of Thrones subreddit. That kind of gives me a good laugh every time I do see it. But yeah, there's I don't. Did you have any other kind of theories that are going on with what's going on in Westeros at the moment? We didn't get anything from King's Landing itself.
That's why I feel like the King's Landing stuff is very much an end play type of thing. I feel like either the White Walkers are going to go there, or like the Winterfell's going to fall, and then they're going to go to the King's Landing, and then try to beat on their door, being like, "Please open up," or something like that, or like because I feel like because Cersei's kind of built up to be like the real main bad person, because like the White Walkers are evil, but they still don't really have the personality or like the reason why. They're kind of like the driving force, but Cersei, by all intents and purposes, is the main bad person in the show, and someone like Jon Snow, he is technically the main character of this show as well. So I feel like there's going to be a lot of things where Cersei's going to be there probably up until the end. Like there's going to be a lot of things where like half the people die, the main cast that we like, and then everyone's going to be like, oh no, like Cersei's still alive. She's like right there. So there's gonna be a lot of, I feel like, things where everyone's like, please die, please die, please die, because like you kind of had the same kind of feeling with season 3 with Joffrey, for example, all the way up until that point, where you're just like, please die, and they finally did it. So I feel like they'll do the kind of the same thing with Cersei when it comes to that stuff. Because
I think Cersei has the, well, I mean, there's the whole thing about potentially Cersei might be killed by Jaime, being a Kingslayer, right? There's that as well. So there might be something tragic. And there was like a big prophecy, back when she was like a child, when like the fortune teller told her that all her children would die and stuff like that, and she would be like killed by one of her brothers. I think that's what it said. And I think she often I think the theory, like, she thinks it's Tyrion because she hates Tyrion's guts, but in reality it might actually be Jamie, right? Like the man who she loves. So I don't know.
Which is good. Which I think is a pretty good, like, I guess, parallel, and I guess portrayal as well. So I feel like that would be good. I feel like.
It'd be interesting to watch Game of Thrones from the beginning and kind of see if you can catch some of these hints as they're presented. I think there's so much information, and so much time that's like presented between episodes. You kind of forget the details.
Possible.
Even
I have heard that, like, the first season, for example, the imagery in the first season and things that, like, symbolism, is not as well thought out, because I think the first season, it wasn't a big deal as of that yet. They would just basically be like, HBO, please not cancel us. So I feel like the first season is kind of like by the numbers, but up until they get to the season 2, season 3, season 4, that's when they started to get a lot more.
Once it got popular from season 1, like, that's when they kind of, oh, hey, you want budget? Sure.
Yeah,
kind of makes sense.
Yeah, basically, because that's the thing. I remember, like, the first shot in the first, like, 10 minutes of Game of Thrones is the White Walker stuff. And that's been there since the start, and then there's been a lot of like symbolism, or things that have been interesting, but they haven't completely touched on, and I think it's purely because they don't have the books to reference. For example, the 2 seasons ago we had Sam with the horn of the Nightwalkers or whatever it is, and using that as the thing, and that really hasn't come back in play in the show, but it's still sort of a thing in the books. The birth of the Night King and all that stuff. That there's a lot of stuff where there's extra lore that they don't really use. But yeah,
but again, I don't really blame them, because again, there's all this stuff about there's like the Lady of the Lake is like whatever, the Stark mother name I forget. There's a lot of stuff that they kind of had but didn't put in, because obviously they're like. They're like, is this a storyline worth keeping? Do we want to make it more magical and mystic, or do we want to keep it more,
well, that's the struggle of an adaptation, really. It's just trying to get the necessary information and details to get that to get the story going, rather than just being like, we're going to give you everything. But yeah.
Also, I was going to say, tell me I'm not the only one who thinks that sending everybody to the crypt is a bad idea, because they mentioned it like several times this episode, and I think they kind of like made it a bit obvious, but like that some shit's gonna happen in the crypt, because they're like, oh, go to the crypt, it's gonna be safe in the crypt. But like the crypt is where like there's undead creature, like undead bodies, so like what's gonna stop like the Night King from resurrecting those dead bodies, unless they have to be like recently. Again, I don't know much about Game of Thrones lore so much, so maybe it has to be like the recent dead, rather than the dead,
really
bones.
dead. Yeah, because it's really hard to explain, but in the books there's a lot of imagery and a lot of foreshadowing of the Stark crypt. In the show, they always just go there to like, I don't know, like talk and do stuff. But in the show, there's a lot of things where like the Stark family have dreams about the crypt. And like they always say like, I can feel the presence of my family being here, like ghostly, like they're watching them almost. So that's in the books, and that's kind of like the details that they give for the crypt. So the crypt is more of an important thing in the books. So I'm not quite sure if that's like they're almost going to be
I think in the earlier episodes, like whether it's earlier seasons, like when Bran comes back to Winterfell.
With the other Tormund.
No, not is it Tormund? No,
the other little kid, the smaller Stark. I forgot his name.
Yeah. I forget his name. Like not Padre. They all have like these names that I don't remember. But like, yeah, back when Hodor was still alive, right? Mm-hmm. And like there's like he had like a premonition with like the three-eyed raven, and I think that happens like in the crypt. Oh, I think it's maybe, I don't know. I think it's something related to like about finding out that like Ned Stark is dead, because I think like all that kind of stuff happens, and he doesn't know until like it kind of gets revealed. Oh, like this is how like he thought like he saw his dad, and then they get the news that, oh, he's dead, right? So I don't know. I think it might be interesting to see like, oh, like, maybe it's like that's their own kind of thing that like it's kind of tragic in that own way, because there's like this little girl who talks to one of the characters is like, oh, I want to fight, and it's like, oh, no, protect everybody in the crypt. And now, there might be a point where you see like, maybe the reason why they said that is because they're gonna have a bunch of zombies come out and eat everybody that's in the crypt. Sorry, not zombies, white.
They're basically zombies, so.
Maybe that might be the cool thing that happens. And it's like, oh, maybe the crypt isn't the safe place that they made it out to be. Especially given that the Night King, they're apparently leading the Night King into the castle. It seems like a really big oversight that, like, neither Bran nor like I guess Tyrion is like the next smartest person. Like, neither of them were like, maybe we don't send everybody to the crypt, or at least like burn the bodies. Obviously it's quite disrespectful, but I think like given the circumstances, it's kind of warranted, right?
Yeah. Well, that's a good theory. I feel like either way, it's gonna come into play like next week, because I feel like this pretty much sets up that the next week's episode is gonna be like a battle episode, and because they set up a lot of stuff. So this is gonna be the big battle episode, and then after this, there's probably gonna be a crushing defeat because we're gonna be midway through the season, and everyone's gonna be like, oh no, where do we go from here? So I feel like that's what they're setting up to, and. Yeah, I'm pretty stoked because
do you think the Night King will get Bran next episode?
Possibly, but I feel like there's still a lot of things with Bran, like, and how he, like, his powers and what he does. So I feel like the plan's gonna go really badly. Like maybe Bran does something that does something severely severe to the army or the Night King, or. Yeah, I don't think he'll just die in vain. I feel like there's going to be something like that, or he gets rescued, or something else happens, or there's going to be something like that. Where like maybe Bran turns evil. I don't know. There'll be either way. Bran is a pretty big, important plot point. I feel like when it comes to the Night King.
There was the whole thing where they said that Bran's actually he is actually the Night King, right? I don't know if you've heard of that one.
Oh, that whole theory, yeah.
Yeah, like, with all his time travel shenanigans, like, he's caused all this stuff, and so he's caused himself to later become the Night King. Not too sure if that's true, but, like, that would kind of add to the theory about why he's like, oh, yes, use me as bait. Yes, that will work. And, oh, yeah, put everybody in the crypt. They'll be safe there, Like, it kind of does sound like someone who's evil might want to say that, like, but who knows? It could be anything. Yeah, again, Game of Thrones kind of open to a lot of things happening.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can't wait until next week then. So with that in mind, we can go to other news of a show that's ending or has ended because it's not getting another season because it got cancelled. And that's the Fox Gifted. So this was that X-Men TV show where there's no real true X-Men into it. It's kind of set in the semi-apocalyptic world in a sense of like mutants have been kind of run down. They're kind of doing the Underground Railroad of like America, for example, where they're kind of like trying to live by, and then the cops and Sentinels basically have them on the run. So I found it like it's a very interesting idea and concept. And they canceled the show because they had pretty much low ratings. It was very much a show that not many people knew of or watched.
I think that's the main thing. You see, I heard of The Gifted. My issue was like, were there characters that I was familiar with or cared about? And that answer generally was no. Although that being said, like, you should sometimes give new TV shows and like, a bit of a go, like, oh, maybe there might be something redeeming about it. I haven't. I know you watched it, but I personally didn't like hear much fanfare about like, oh, The Gifted, and also there was like another X-Men show. I feel like that was happening, not Legion, but another.
Well, Legion got cancelled as well, so.
Well, Legion, but Legion is at least getting its
final season, yeah.
Yeah, so at least like they can kind of try and wrap things up around that, like whereas I guess maybe The Gifted might end on a cliffhanger potentially.
It does, because the season ended, and it ends with Blink. So if you watch Days of Future Past, you should know who Blink is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it ends with her coming back from the future, and it feels like they were doing a Days of Future Past TV show. And I feel like that's I think what people got really pissed off about. I'm like, oh, it's so close. Like you could have just ended at the Days of Future Past season, because that would have been really cool to see that as a TV show. But obviously we won't see the light of day with that, and it's kind of sad. Like I do enjoy the show for what it was, because it did explored more of X-Men type lore, but without, you know, the complications of Wolverine, Professor X, and a lot of the main players. You know, like the X-Men that you saw here is Blink. You had Eclipse. You know, you had a few, and you had the Struckers, and their big family name in the X-Men universe.
Okay. So here's the thing: like you say complications of Wolverine and whatnot, but like these characters like kind of have, you know, the big X-Men like name kind of bring people to watch the shows, right? Like even the future characters. Obviously, maybe they couldn't use people like I forget the guy. He's like in Deadpool 2, like Cable, right? Maybe they couldn't use Cable. Maybe they couldn't use like some of the big names. But clearly, like I think you know, things when you can't use certain characters and you kind of have to make up like a ghetto Avengers, right? Like a ghetto X-Men team, made out of like all the kind of leftover people. People aren't as interested, right? Like same thing, like, you know, if you had to make like a Justice League series, but it's in the future and it's with like
Cyborg.
I don't know. Well, I mean, Cyborg would probably, but you know, well, hey, to be fair, I kind of like Cyborg in the Doom Patrol series, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But like, yeah, like when you have like these kind of like C-list characters who don't really have a lot of you know, proper character development, and the writers kind of don't know what they're doing with them. They kind of like make them into like generic shells or archetypes that aren't like, you know, they're kind of cookie cutter. I'm not too sure if that's the case with The Gifted, but I'm just saying for shows that are superhero related or otherwise, when, you know, they don't have a lot of like, you know, source of information to build upon, they usually come off as really flat, right? And one dimensional, so to speak. I don't know if that was the problem. I don't know if that was the problem with The Gifted, but it has been the problem with some shows that, you know, kind of don't last. But I mean, The Gifted has lasted for like what, 3 seasons?
Two seasons. I think it was just end of 2017, went into 2018, and then yeah, they had the last few episodes in 2019. And you know, I kind of knew it was kind of happening. I knew the writing was on the wall because no one was talking about it. I knew that like the ratings were pretty bad for the show as well. And obviously, you know, it was probably going to keep on continuing under the Fox brand, but since Disney bought it, and I think they're trying to cull a lot of stuff where they're just like, we don't need that. I feel like basically The Gifted was part of that, where they're just like, yeah, this is low ratings, we don't really need this, let's kind of get rid of it. So it's you know a shame, and it's going to be one of those shows 100% where like 10 years from now there's going to be an article being like, you know, 7 TV shows you didn't know was like adapted from X-Men comics or like comic books, and it'll be like it's going to be one of those shows that's kind of lost in the next few years, and they'll be like, oh yeah, remember freaking Gifted? Like it'll be one of those.
No, you don't, because nobody watched. Is that what it's going to be? That nobody remembers?
Yeah, it'll be one of those obscure shows that no one watched. Like no one remembers, you know, already. Like the Inhumans TV show from Marvel.
Well, yeah, because that had like one episode, and they were embarrassed about how bad it was.
So yeah, it's gonna be basically a trivia thing.
Actually, I never watched the Inhuman show. Maybe it was good. I heard it was not. But who knows? I think, you know, Disney. You know, now that you mentioned the Disney thing, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Like Disney does want to have everything like kind of consolidated into one big idea or new brand, right? And so they might be kind of doing that with you know, X-Men, because, you know, I think I mentioned it last week, that you know, if X-Men is confirmed, they will be doing an Avengers versus X-Men thing. And I think I actually remembered reading an article that was published, I think, a month or so ago, that said something along the lines of, oh yeah, we are planning to do Avengers versus X-Men. So that means, you know, X-Men is probably confirmed, and that probably also means that you know, they do want to kind of rebrand everything. Which is a bit of a shame, because I do like the current cast of X-Men that exist under the Fox brand. Like maybe they might not get rid of them, maybe they might utilize some of them.
Because it would be really hard to recast someone like Professor X and Magneto again for the third time. Because like you
That's
struck lightning with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. Like that was very hard to do, and they got them. And then they did it really well again with McAvoy and Fassbender. And I feel like trying to do that for a third time is going to be not only very hard, but there's not even that much actors out there anymore. Like there's a lot of actors, but there's not many actors out there that don't have the gravitas or like is not part of a comic book series almost, that they can't really be like, because Tom Hardy's out. I feel like Tom Hardy's like worthless being in a Venom thing. Like he should be he should be Wolverine, or he should be like Batman, for example. Not Venom. Like he is underutilized. I feel like he should be one of the main people. But Fassbender is one of the top actors in our current place, and he's really not doing. And he's doing really well, but hopefully they utilize him or something like that,
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? With I don't know what the goal for it is for Disney in the future, but that's probably what they're interested in doing. Like, oh, let's get rid of these shows, let's make our own Netflix TV shows, or Disney TV shows. Like, I think there was like this conference that they had where it's like they showed all the things that they owned, and it's like Fox, which now includes The Simpsons, right? Can you imagine the mouse owned Simpsons? It's kind of amazing in that way.
Yeah, they own a lot of stuff. They own like Kingsman, which thank God they said they're going to make more Kingsman films, but let's hope it's not like it is as extreme as it has always been. They own Alien now. They own like a lot. They own Die Hard, which they're probably going to reboot. Probably they own a lot of cool franchises that I'm very scared of, like, because everyone's like, oh yeah, Disney, it's okay if they bought Lucasfilm, they're not going to dumb down Star Wars, but they kind of did. Like there's nothing too mature and adult about it. So that's why the problem is, if they make a Alien reboot film that isn't like a very hard like rated horror movie, then I feel like that's going to be a problem. That's my kind of problem, is dumbing down things, and I feel like,
well, I think Disney does want to have, like, its toes dipped in a few things, right? Like have the R-rated content and the M-rated content, and also have like the all the mature stuff, and then have all the kid stuff as well, right? I think the issue is like, yeah, especially when they market themselves family first, it's kind of hard to like put in Punisher and all kind of things where people die, right? It kind of leads to like a lot of kind of issues where you'll have parental blocks and stuff like that, and I'm sure they probably don't want to introduce that as a factor, because that prevents people from watching certain shows, and if they're spending millions and millions of dollars making it, it's kind of not what the direction that they want to go down. We'll see what they do. Again, they're doing all the stuff, like, they have the Scarlet Witch TV series. They have, like, I think they mentioned like the Falcon and
Winter Soldier.
That's a thing.
The Loki one as well.
Yeah,
so they've got a lot of random stuff coming out.
Honestly, I think this is what they should have done from the get-go. Like, none of these kind of okay, as much as I did like Netflix Daredevil, it's never in the same. Well, actually, Daredevil kind of did get there. Like, it had the potential to be like, oh, it's all in one shared universe kind of thing, right? But I think
in the first like seasons of each show, they tried to be like, they name dropped a lot of stuff, but like the more and more it progressed, the more and more it's like, this is actually individual, and we can't do much about these characters because it has its own tone, but as well as like it's completely different. That's why I think, as we mentioned like before, it's probably better if they did like a Hawkeye TV show or something like
100%.
that. Where it's like they're in the movie universe, but it'd be cool to see an adventure with them and who they are, because they don't get that much screen time. They don't have individual films to expand or branch out of these characters and who they are, really.
I think at the same time, maybe Marvel was, maybe like some people might like, Hawkeye and Black Widow. Like, what they should have done is they should have had like a Hawkeye and Black Widow TV series. Maybe it's just because of when it all started, like having 10 episode event TV wasn't like a big thing. Like, it wasn't something that was like seen as stable, like, maybe 15 years ago or whatever it may be. when Iron Man came out. So like they're like, maybe it's not worth kind of making a show like that. It doesn't seem viable. Whereas like under today's like kind of marketplace, it's like, oh yeah, having a TV series is, you have a lot of high grade actors kind of doing these 10 episode series and getting paid millions doing it. So it's no longer there isn't this stigma, kind of being a movie actor and then also doing TV acting, because I think there used to be this stigma like, oh, if you're a movie actor and then you start doing TV, you then become a TV actor, and it's very hard to kind of go back to being a movie actor, right? Whereas now you have a lot of big names kind of going back and forth, doing movie, doing TV, because it's all kind of interchanged almost, right? Like you're having people on Netflix making movies, and you have on other platforms making TV series, and you can just jump back and forth. And so now that they're kind of like, okay, cool, we're gonna have Scarlet Witch movie, we're gonna have Falcon, they should do more of those kinds of. I think Black Widow's finally getting her movie, which will probably be interesting. But I think like if they could have done it, they probably should have done something like a Hawkeye and Black Widow like mini series. Like that would have been more interesting. Like see them actually go into like covert missions together. I don't know, fighting Hydra or some shit.
Yeah, and in the end, it helps the end product of the films themselves, because you get more just character development with these characters, which, I think that was the plan originally with the, Daredevil, for example, but, that never came to pass, where they didn't appear in any movies at all. So it's kind of wasted potential there. So like,
I think part of that is due to the fact that like the movie division and the TV division was separated. So there wasn't a lot of, cooperation between having certain things. Like Kevin Feige wanted certain things to be like this, and didn't want to play ball with the TV division. Like that's why he got like permission to just, all right, I'm going to do my own thing over here. You guys can play there. I think now that you're going to have like a big status quo change after Endgame, he's kind of like, okay, yeah, let's play ball a little bit and let's kind of expand. And get people watching TV and maybe video games. Who knows? There might be a lot of stuff coming in the future in regards to it.
Yeah, because that's a smart strategy. Because even like DC, for example, which probably leads us into our next thing is DC's pretty much been in a role. Like I feel like their films kind of getting on track of the type of tone. And DC they do have their like you'd kind of say semi off brand when it comes to like the CW shows, but they have their, I would say, mainland. They have full control, full permission of what they want to do, and that is there's on their streaming service something like Titans, Swamp Thing, and obviously what we're going to be reviewing right now is Doom Patrol. So they pretty much have full control over this and who these characters are and how they want to portray them. And even in this series, they actually name drop a lot of stuff like the Justice League, for example. So yeah, there's been a few episodes out of this show. And I don't want to be one of those people that's like, Doom Patrol, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy in the DC universe, but it's much more than that. Like, these characters are pretty much not well known aside from Cyborg, and they're a little bit weird, but then it's not like the Guardians of the Galaxy in the sense of it's trying to convey the same tone of it, or, you know what I mean? It's,
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
I think definitely with Doom Patrol. So this used to be a comic that wasn't from DC originally. I don't think. I think it might have been. I forget what it is, but essentially a very smaller, more cult fan based kind of comic, and apparently like the adaptation is very good, right? Although I haven't read, I've read like the odd Doom Patrol comic, but I'm not like super familiar with like a lot of like the background and stuff like. Yeah, so far, yeah, Vertigo comics. That's what I do remember, it being a part of. So yeah, there is a lot of crossover now where like some of the characters, like for example, Cyborg is, I think originally a DC character, but they've obviously put some of the lore here and there with the Doom Patrol. But I think Beast Boy was originally a Doom Patrol character from that series. But then they kind of like had him come on and then like eventually be a part of Teen Titans, which is essentially what you see in the Titans movie. TV series. That's essentially what happens. They also make a reference to it in, I think, the Teen Titans movie that came out. They do make like a little bit of Young Justice. There's a episode of Young Justice that goes through the origin of Beast Boy, and does this in a really slapsticky way where they reference the Doom Patrol, and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of like kind of cult following for a Doom Patrol. It's very popular among the spaces in which people know it, and yeah, it's been an interesting ride so far. What are your thoughts about Doom Patrol so far?
I feel like it's one of those shows that there's nothing really much about it. Like, I feel like it's very abstract and very different. It's not the normal, I guess, comic book / superhero TV show that most people would expect. Like, it's not like Arrow where there's kind of a formula of like defeating the bad guy, knowing where the bad guy is, doing like little plans to try to beat them. It is very different, but it's not too abstract in a sense that it's not like Legion. It's not like Legion in the sense where it's like, this is very far gone and very odd and only specific people will probably like it. I feel like Doom Patrol kind of gets that middle ground of like, this is engaging enough for regular type audiences that want kind of like semi comic book fun and have these quirky characters doing kind of things, because they're all broken characters and they all come together to kind of form a team. But it does some weird stuff that like, I guess like if you're just a person that was watching it, you'd be like, what the hell's going on? Like my reference point is like if you ever watch Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and then you see the first fight with one of the evil exes, and then you see Anna Kendrick's character, which is the sister, like Scott and everyone's fighting like martial arts and doing these cool moves, and then the sister's kind of like, what the hell? Like, why is everyone acting like this is normal, but like this is weird for me? I feel like Doom Patrol sometimes does that, where there's sometimes a talking cockroach. There's very unique ideas about like a hitman, for example, that if you swallow the DNA of people's hair, he can understand them and things like that. So like, this show has a lot of weird creativity like that. And if you're open to that, I think this show is very much a lot of fun. And I feel like the actors that play the different characters in this show do a really good. They do have really good chemistry with each other, and I feel like. I just feel like they work together really well, and I really enjoy watching this show, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of went into this show a little bit more like, okay, cool, there's going to be like more of a structure, and I think like, when the show initially starts, there seems to be a big focus on on a plot and trying to go somewhere. Essentially, the plot is about like they don't refer to themselves as superheroes, but like a gang of kind of misfits who have like superhuman abilities or superpowers, so to speak, who are kind of wards of a scientist / inventor called I think Niles.
Niles Calder. Yep.
Yeah, Calder, who goes missing. He gets kidnapped by an entity known as Mr. Nobody, who is this kind of meta villain who I kind of really like. He kind of has a really unique look. But yeah, he kind of like he's kind of the narrator at times, and he often talks in like breaks the fourth wall, and kind of tells you about what's going on, and talks with the characters. It's very weird and abstract, like you mentioned, but not like something like, like you won't understand. It's just like, it's very different from like a typical kind of traditional TV show and how a narrative is presented. But then a lot of the character, it kind of starts like that, the first couple of episodes, but then it starts to go more into, they're going to explore this particular thing that's happening in this particular episode.
Like they find the original Doom Patrol, or like, they find a supernatural street called Danny.
Danny the Street, which funnily enough, I'm actually aware of Danny the Street randomly enough. He was in the New 52. There was in the Teen Titans series, which isn't that great. I wouldn't recommend it. In the New 52 Teen Titans, at least. But Danny the Street was like a character, like a literal street. Like a metaphysical street that would appear and like help people, and they actually deal with it in this episode. So maybe its origin comes from Doom Patrol. I'm not sure, But yeah, like, there's like they interact with that, and a lot of it just seems to be like it kind of devolved to, oh, let's kind of explore some people and things that have interacted with Niles, but not actually progress the plot towards finding Niles. I kind of feel like that's kind of what's happening. And if some of the episodes kind of ended with, oh, okay, let's move on to this next thing, or oh, there was a reason why Niles told us to come here. Maybe that's gonna happen later. Like, they'll kind of bring all the pieces. Like, oh, this is why we went Y and Z. But every single person that we have interacted with so far seem to have the same kind of idea as, oh, we don't know where the chief is. Do you? And they're like, no, we're trying to look for him as well. And then they kind of get caught up in whatever shenanigan of the episode that's happening.
Kind of reminds me of anime almost. There's like some anime stuff where it's like it's one big journey, but like the episode by episode basis, it's like you'd think it's traveling onto something, but there's it's not as straightforward as a narrative of just like we're gonna connect all these pieces. More like we want to explore certain segments or ideas in each individual episode. But I do feel like it's all coming to head. Even with the most recent episode, I feel like there does seem to be. I feel like there's more focus on Niles in the most like recent episode, and I feel like maybe the I guess the Doom Patrol per se is gonna like they're kind of getting to that point, or it could be one of those shows where they never really find him and they just go on crazy adventures for like 3 or 5 seasons. Like, who knows?
Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if I'd be as interested in that. Just because like I kind of like having some kind of stake. Like, even though like they literally had like a world-ending stake. I think it was called the episode was called maybe it was called Cult Patrol. And essentially there was like the decreator, and so there was like this episode where they have to like form a cult to try and counter the original cult, and there's time travel involved, and it's really bizarre, but it's a really great episode, and I really liked it because, again, the Niles characters involved. It kind of seems like it should be an episode that should have been like done later, and not as early as it's presented, because I think it happens like really early in the series. But then there's an episode where there's like Danny the Street. There was an episode about that. There's
the one episode I really liked is it's one of the most recent ones is like because there's a character called Jane. And basically she has like 52 personalities or something like that.
I think it's like 60 something.
Yeah, so she has all these different personalities. There's one where like she can materialize words as weapons, so I thought that was pretty creative. And you're kind of seeing it from the outset most of the time, so you're like, okay, she's switching in and out of these different personalities. But then we have one episode where we actually go inside her mind, and it's like a big physicality of her mind, and it's kind of cool to see that as a physical place with actors inside of it. I think that's why I really enjoy the show, because it has these cool creative ideas where like they go inside a donkey and there's a world inside a donkey, or like as you were talking about before with the cult one, it's inside like a snow globe or something like that. It's like weird stuff where like things like that happen.
You see, it's weird stuff, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, I guess for me, it kind of seems like it kind of gets to the point where it's too bizarre for me to sometimes care about what's going on. But maybe that's kind of the point. Again, I haven't read the comics. Maybe that might give a little bit more insight. Yeah, I do like the episode you're referring to, Jane Patrol, mainly because it actually explains a lot about the interactions between Jane and Robot Man.
Yes, good old Cliff, or good old Brendan Fraser. Which, by the way, I was gonna say, I'm happy that he's working again. I'm just happy that he's doing something. Even if I don't care, I don't care if he's just a robot dude. I'm just happy that I can hear Brendan Fraser's voice somewhere.
I mean, they do try and get any opportunity to make him like a regular man than be in the robot costume. So I kind of really like that. But yeah, like they kind of have Brendan Robot Man kind of sees Crazy Jane, because that's the character's name, although they just refer to it. Sees her as kind of like a little bit of a surrogate daughter. And it kind of is explained like throughout the season, like, yeah, she doesn't want to be seen as a daughter by him. And like, in the past couple of episodes, she's like really rude and really mean to him, but it kind of all gets like, wrapped up and explained in this episode. I think my problem is there's too much focus on all these random stuff that's happening And maybe that's because like maybe every episode is kind of like an adaptation of a comic. Maybe that's why there's all this kind of random stuff happening, because it's like being quite true to the adaptation. Like you were saying, there's all these like random things about the cricket, and that come back as like a bit of a meme like later. But
Oh,
it's
there's like
like,
I think there's a mouse or something that's a killer
yeah, a
mouse.
mouse.
I'm like, what is this show? It's very weird when it does stuff like
It's
that.
very weird.
But I'm
Yeah,
like, okay, fine. That's like comic booky at its kind of finest almost, where it's like it's very abstract and it's like, okay, fine. Like I'm just gonna let it slide.
I mean, the thing is, like I'm enjoying aspects of, for example, like probably the character that's probably one of the better characters in this show, is Cyborg, because his character is a lot less like wacko crazy, but like he clearly still does have like issues regarding like the death of his like mother, and like you know also being a robot. But then also you see him kind of deal with like the fame of being a superhero, because like I think there's like an episode where like he finds out he's got like a Tinder account or something, some equivalent, and everybody, just all the girls just want to talk to him like he's a superhero, so they only care about him because he's a cyborg rather than the actual person he is. So it's really interesting to see that kind of stuff done, whereas like a lot of the other characters seem to be like the same cookie cutter kind of stuff that's happening. For example, like Rita Farr, she's like an actor from like the 50s, I want to say.
Yeah, around like that 40s golden
Yeah,
era.
40s, 50s.
Yeah.
Like a Hollywood actress who kind of like has these kind of anxiety issues where like because she was exposed to this like toxic substance, she turns into like this really disgusting blob thing. And so at times when she's suffering a lot of stress, she turns into this blob and she looks ugly and she can't control it, right? But it just seems to be something that's continuously a problem, and it doesn't progress. And it's been 10 episodes in a series, and it's like, I don't know. For me, it's just like, and the same thing with some of the other characters. Like a character,
What,
Negative
Negative
Man.
Man?
Yeah, Larry. He, his thing is, hey, he was a pilot, and he died, and now he has this weird, I guess, electric creature in him. That's like a bit of like a Deus Ex. Like he'll just come in and I think that's the purpose. Like his character, that thing that's in him, just like electric creature, is supposed to be like a bit of a, oh yeah, whatever the plot needs him to be. But again, it doesn't raise the stakes. It doesn't make me care about what happens. Like it's like, get to the point where like we can actually do something with your character. Like let's get to the episode where you confront your issues. There's some other cool things, like for example, I think I think it's the Danny the Street episode where it's like revealed, oh, like I think the government actually used him to like do missions with that kind of thing. But it's like, show me that episode. Show me this episode where all that happens, and maybe that'll lead, because there's still episodes to come. Because I think, is it on its mid-season break at the moment?
I think we're a little bit more further up, but it's like we got a few
Okay.
more left. I think there's like 4 or 5.
Okay, yeah, and yeah, like again, it's same thing with Cliff. It's like, yes, he's kind of a robot man. Like, let's have more episodes regarding all that. And they do it. They like they talk about the therapy episode where they're all trying to like, and that's the one with the mouse that you mentioned. And yeah, I just feel like it for me, it kind of feels like it's having this problem that some TV series, especially like I think the Netflix Marvel TV series had, where they kind of waffle on for too much, and they kind of stick around doing, kind of going back as like, oh, are they going to continue being crazy? Is she going to be able to use her powers properly? Yes, no, and it's just like a backflip, and there's no kind of development of the character until we actually have that one episode where we learn something about them. For example, the Jane episode, where it's like, oh, we find out that, oh, this is the reason why she behaves this way, and she kind of overcomes it. Again, I'm not saying every episode has to be one of these. It's just there should be more. There seems to be a lot of waffling for this show, and I think that kind of makes me not enjoy it as much as something like Titans, which does actually have a similar kind of problem, but because Titans is far more like consistent with what's going on, in terms of the plot, and we're trying to find X and Y, and you kind of follow it, and there's some stakes involved. In this show, it's like, we're gonna find the chief. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe.
That's why I feel like this one's very much in a weird direction / tone that's different from more like from different comic book superhero adaptations. Where I feel like Titans is like they could have easily made this into a Titans thing, but I very much feel like the direction that they chose is slightly different. Where they're very much because I think the only problem that I feel with Titans at the moment is we still don't have as much character as we really want with these Titans characters and them and working with their problems and things like that. We don't have as much of that in Titans. While I feel like this one has maybe too much of that and there's not enough like superhero antics. So I feel like next season for both of them, they're going to have a good combination of both. I feel like they kind of flipped it almost.
I think, no, you see, my thing is I feel like Doom Patrol might be adapting the comics like too much, if that makes sense.
I haven't read any of the comics, but
neither. But I have heard that some of this does use a lot of the stuff from the comics. So again, if anybody is more familiar with it, let us know. Like maybe I might have to do more research about it. But I feel like Titans, on the other hand, doesn't have the same kind of problems because it's kind of its own unique kind of story. Like, sure, they can pull plots here and there, but then they can still make a cohesive story, like, overall about it. Whereas with this, they need to they need to explain the origin of Robot Man and Crazy Jane and, all that. Whereas, like, Cyborg kind of has a normal, backstory, so he can kind of be swooped into the Titans TV show, which I think is definitely going to happen. I think he's one of the best parts of Doom Patrol, and he is an original member of the Teen Titans, I think.
Yeah, I think
so it kind of makes sense to have him. So it kind of makes sense to have him interact with all those guys again, and kind of funnily enough, like Doom Patrol losing another character from their roster, like they lost Beast Boy originally.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'll stick out for it and watch the 4 or 5 episodes that's left over for it, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like maybe Titan seems to be more my in terms of things that are to watch. But there are some really great moments in the film. In the TV series. Like there's some really funny stuff. Like like when they go to I think it's like the like Fuckland or something, or like I forget what it's called, but it's like it's called like Fuckland. And essentially where they give people superpowers, and it's like basically like a Nazi stronghold, and they just start like there's like a puppet show in the middle of it, and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's so random, but it is kind of like endearing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with the show. I think it has charm to it that's very odd and unique. Like that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit obscure. It pretty much like I feel like this TV show is like it pretty much focuses on the people who like the obscure or something that's very weird. Like Titans is like by all means Titans is like the mainstream, like this is what you kind of want out of it, an adaptation of like a comic book superhero type of thing. And I feel like Doom Patrol is very much like, hey, we're gonna adapt things for someone who likes weird stuff or like is not like very much could be like it would turn people off. I feel like that's kind of their main demographic, and
I don't know. I don't think you want to kind of. I don't know if you want to make that your demographic though, because there's not a lot of people who like just obscure. People like when it's like there's a good mesh of both, right? Like when there's obscure, but then there's still stuff in it. And Doom Patrol does have like a plot. It's just like it's taking a long time to get to, like it's kind of feeling like, okay, they're going to get to it towards the end, like episode 14 15 is going to be when they're going to actually, oh, by the way, let's actually try and find Niles now, and then that might lead into season 2, because I think season 2 is confirmed for Doom Patrol, right?
Yeah, possibly. I'd assume so, because yeah, DC's roster, they've already built up these characters, so I feel like they'd be weird to do one season of a thing, but maybe they could be doing that where almost in the sense they can just do like, we're going to adapt something and it's going to be one season. But, I feel like there's a lot of seeds in this show that could very much be like a second season or a third season pretty much. So, but yeah, obviously we have to wait until like the season finale or something like that to see if there's a future with the show or what they're doing with the show. But yeah, I enjoy the show. It's a little bit different. And I just say at least go check it out and to see what the kind of, I guess, the fuss is about, and if not, just watch it for Brendan Fraser. That's kind of what I say.
Yeah, keep the man employed.
Yeah, he's got to do stuff. But yeah, that's going to be us for this week. Remember, you can always listen to us on Stitcher, Libsyn, which is our website, iTunes, and on YouTube, where we split it up topic by topic, and also stream it, obviously, on the channel, the Pancake Parlay, or marketing movies in the Pancake Parlay. So until next time, possibly Henry Cavill is our Superman, but until next time, see you guys.
Catch up.